Assalamu alaikum. I want to take this opportunity to discuss an issue that we're all probably dealing with this month, in the month of June, which has been named the Pride Month. And the reason that this is important that we talk about is that we can hide from these things and not talk about it. And as Muslims, we find ourselves sometimes having to struggle in explaining these things to our children and sometimes to others, when in fact we are in complete control of our facts when it comes to how the Quran and our Deen deals with these issues. And this is not going to be, a khatira that is going to rant and rave about how disgusting or how not disgusting it is. It's more a methodical way of discussing how the Quran addressed the issue of homosexuality and that it is haram, and also talk to our children about the issues that they probably will hear come up outside of the household, and be prepared in how you equip your children and yourself to answer these questions, because there isn't a place that you can go to now, hardly a place, where you're not going to see the rainbow flag or ads or things on TV. And therefore sometimes we feel like Sayyidina Nuh, وقال لو كان بي قوة أو آوي إلى ركن شديد. He wished that he had the power or the support to deal with the problem that he was dealing with, which at that time was the same problem that we're dealing with now, and with the intensity that it comes with. Now, a lot of people, once they hear somebody, say the opinion that we voice as Muslims or as members of society, they will immediately label you as homophobic and probably try to gun you down, figuratively, because they will consider that to be the opposite of what's fashionable nowadays. But as Muslims, we are ordered to do Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al Munkar. And that's why when I gave khutbah about this last year at the same time, one of our musallin came up to me and said, I don't know why we need to talk about this. This is not really a subject that affects us as Muslims. And my answer to him was, well, first of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about this and mentioned Sayyidina Lut in 27 ayat in the Quran, or 27 mawadi' in the Quran. He only talked about ayat al-wudu' in Surah al-Nisa and in Surah al-Ma'idah. So which do you think is more important, to talk about wudu' or to talk about these social issues that affect humanity, affect families? Now, I want to talk about this on two levels. I want to talk about this to the Muslim. I want to talk about this to the non-Muslim, because you can't really tell somebody, it's haram if they don't believe in God, if they don't believe in Allah, and you have to tell them why it's not good for society. So the first thing is, I want to address a couple of questions that, and by the way, for the brother that told me that this does not affect us as Muslims, I have to say that it does, and we have this now in our society and in the Muslim society in our countries. So we really have to deal with this not from the point of paranoia, but from the same perspective that Allah has dealt with it, that it's a fahisha. And because it's a fahisha, we want to see how we can discuss it in light of the Quran and in light of its effects on society and its effects on the the values that we hold as Muslims and as members of society in general. So the first thing I want to say, children will ask you the first question: is it haram? The second question is, are people born with it? Is it genetic? And then they will ask you, how do I deal with it? How do I deal with my friends who are gay or lesbian? The first question, is it haram? In the Quran for Muslims, it is absolutely haram because it is a fahisha. And the ayat that deal with the fahisha are clear in the Quran. قُلْ حَرَّمَ رَبِّيَ الْفَوَاحِشَ مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَمَا بَطَنَ. Another, obviously, ayah, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الْفَوَاحِشَ مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْها وَمَا بَطَنَ. Now, al-fahisha, the way it's listed in the Quran, includes 6 things: nikah al-maharim, incest; nikah al-muhsanat, intercourse with a married person; nikah zawjat al-ab, marrying or having sex with the father's mother, father's wife, which is your stepmother; az-zina, which is الجنس العلني, where you need 4 shuhud; and السفاح, which is group sex; and اتخاذ الأخدان. Now السفاح could be now part of the whole LGBT way of life. And اتخاذ الأخدان في سورة المائدة and في سورة النساء محصنين غير مسافحين ولا متخذي أخدان. And in the Nisa, محصنات غير مسافحات ولا متخذي أخدان. And أخدان is المثليه, which is the homosexuality. So the Quran is clear about this being haram. And the second question, really about are people born with it? This is a question that is really addressed in one ayah that probably covers the 2 issues: is it haram, and is this something that people are born with, according to Islam, of course. Now, again, I'm going to talk about this for non-Muslims, but for Muslims, we have to talk about what's in the Quran, what's in the message of Allah. وَلُوطًا إِذْ قَالَ لِقَوْمِهِ, this is in the Araf, أَتَأْتُونَ الْفَاحِشَةَ مَا سَبَقَكُمْ بِهَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. Sayyidina Lut said to his people, you are committing fahisha, which we already said that is haram, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الْفَوَاحِشَ مَا سَبَقَكُمْ بِهَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. Nobody has committed this before you. Alameen is really humans and non-humans. And he says, nobody has done this before you. When you say that, then clearly that means that this is an issue that is relatively new at the time of Sayyidina Lut. And therefore, you cannot say that it's genetic, because if it were, Allah would not say مَا سَبَقَكُمْ بِهَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ, because then it would be part of the genetic makeup of humans. Now, some people might say, well, maybe it was not really known. This is what Allah is saying. So again, if you are a Muslim and you are a believer, this is your answer. You cannot waver on this. You either believe or you don't believe. If you believe, then this is your answer. مَا سَبَقَكُمْ بِهَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. This was not done before. And therefore, it's not something that people say, oh, I was born like this. Well, if you are a believer, then you have to believe either what this person is saying or what Allah is saying. I believe what Allah is saying. Okay? If you want to believe what this person is saying, then obviously you have a khalal, you have a dysfunction in your iman. Now, some people said, well, in the 90s there was a research that was done that showed that there is a genetic, a homosexuality gene, and that was proven to be not true recently in 2019. The person that conducted the initial research was in fact a gay person himself, and that's why this was self-serving. However, now with 23andMe and Bio Data Bank in England, they had a sample of 500,000 people that were used to do a research, because now obviously a lot of people are given blood to try to see what about ancestry, etc. So they used that with the people's consent, and they conducted a research that showed there is no such thing as an XQ28 gene that is responsible for homosexuality, and this is more learned behavior. Okay, so that confirms the ayah, and therefore, we can say that when Allah is saying this, science will prove it as well. And furthermore, in the second part of the ayah, or in the next ayah, إنكم تأتون الرجال شهوة من دون النساء بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. Now, you should, in Arabic, شهوة means something that you do because you have sort of like this desire, not really innate, not really instinctive, not part of you, not genetic. And the Qawm Lut used to have homosexuality as a fashionable thing, just like we have it now, shahwatan. Okay, you don't eat shahwatan unless it's something that you really want to experiment with. If you're hungry, you eat gharizatan because you have to eat. But if you eat shahwatan, then you don't need just meat, you need like grilled meat or smoked meat, or that's shahwa. Okay, so Allah is saying here that they were having this lifestyle as a shahwa, and look at what we're going through now. It used to be gays and lesbians. Now it was expanded to LGBTQ. Now that's not even enough. Now it's LGBTQIA2S plus. I can't even memorize it because now it's becoming experimental. Now, again, this is confirmed in this ayah for us who believe, and I'm discussing this, with Muslims that believe, and Allah says that تَأْتُونَ الرِّجَالَ شَهْوَةً مِنْ دُونِ النِّسَاءِ بَلْ أَنْتُمْ قَوْمٌ مُسْرِفُونَ. Musrifun is al-israf, is the tamadi, is the excess in haram. المسرفون إخوان الشياطين يا عبادي الذين أسرفوا على أنفسهم. That's all people that commit haram. They start, getting sort of like into this non-stop sort of lifestyle of expanding and trying different things. And that is something that Allah has addressed in this ayah. So here we have three answers to three questions that I listed. Is it a fahisha and is it haram? Yes. تأتون الفاحشة ما سبقكم بها من أحد من العالمين. Nobody has done that before you. So Qawm Lut were the first ones, and now obviously we have a comeback. إنكم تأتون الرجال شهوة. So it's a desire. It's not really something. It's not an instinct or like a genetic makeup. بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. This becomes something that is a slippery slope, and that's what we're seeing right now. Now, this is how you answer somebody who is a Muslim. But before I go any further, let me just make it clear. As Muslims, we even allow people who don't believe in Allah the freedom to not believe in Allah. So more importantly, if somebody wants to be a homosexual, you can do da'wah, you can do amr bil ma'ruf and nahy al munkar. You don't use, more than that. In some of our countries, there, people use violence to deal with people who are homosexual. This is not something that Islam allows. Now, in the Quran, it definitely doesn't allow it. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished Qawm Lut, and that's where, Sodom came from because of the whole sodomy and the whole, the Bahr al-Miyat, the Dead Sea, that is for Allah, not for us. So you don't take that into your own hands. You use da'wah, you talk to people, you do what I'm trying to do now. But we're becoming a little bit afraid to speak up, because we feel like, just like Sayyidina Lut, we feel like we wish we had قوة أو we can have support. نأوي إلى ركن شديد. No, you have to speak up. You do not feel that you should be really silenced, because this is part of our deen, الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. Now let me talk about how you can really deal with this also with people who are not Muslim, and they ask you, first of all, look at the percentage of people who are identifying as LGBTQ or whatever it is nowadays. It's 21% of Generation Z. 21%. If you go back to millennials, it was 10.5. And if you go back to baby boomers, it was about 5 and a little bit over 5. So it's increased, it's doubling with each generation. If you go back to the traditionalists, it was 0.08. So it was, now people might say, well, because at that time they were afraid to come out. Yes, but it's not about that. It's about people finding that this is becoming somewhat fashionable. It's things like the, obviously Pride Month, where millions are being spent, billions are being spent to promote that it's okay. You see commercials, you see, events. Now, all of this is one thing, which is obviously something that I oppose, but more importantly, what is being now marketed as, we have to teach kids that it's okay. And that's why, we have to really talk about what can we do to combat this and to stop gender identity politics where this is being taught in school. I don't really see the point, if somebody wants to practice homosexuality, why they want to teach it in school. And that's why, we sometimes as Muslims find it difficult to align ourselves with the Democrats or the Republicans, because there are issues that you probably will find yourself that you don't really relate to on either side of the aisle. That's why I support, the positions that some politicians have taken in Florida, for example, in given and legislating laws that protect parents from stopping schools from teaching this gender identity politics. And I think that should go without saying. I mean, why would you want to teach that to a child, from kindergarten to the 3rd grade? So yes, look for candidates in your area and question them on issues like this. And it's important that we ourselves have our candidates that start, representing the Muslim community and with these ideas. And also, and then this is really what I will probably, finish with. We have to talk to people who are non-Muslims about, where is this going? As if 21% now identify as LGBTQ, how does that affect families? How does that affect, the progress that has been known? If you read books such as The Secret of Our Success, for Henry or Sapiens, you will see that society started flourishing when families started forming, and this is something that is compatible with Islam. When families, at the time of Sayyidina Nuh, started, becoming the center of society, societies started forming around families. Now, what we're doing with this, LGBTQ politics is that we are destroying the concept of family. And that's why I want to talk about it from a logical, conversation. If somebody wants to be, homosexual, you know what? That's their life. They can do whatever they please. It's not really, for me to tell them, it's for me to tell them from the point of da'wah, from point of amr bil ma'ruf and nahy al munkar. But the hisab is with Allah, okay? But I care about, how this affects my life. And the problem is that now this movement is becoming so aggressive that, it's not people like us going after them. It's the opposite. We even believe in, if you are mu'min or not mu'min, that's for you to decide. Allah will, do hisab for you on Day of Judgment. That's why man sha'a falyu'min wa man sha'a falyakfur. If al-iman is up to the person, then min bab awla, makes more sense that, the decision to be homosexual or not is definitely, a person's decision. But how does it affect society? Now, we can talk about this, like I said, from a Muslim or non-Muslim point of view, and both perspectives show that this lifestyle is really gonna affect us negatively as a society, and it's gonna affect the person negatively. A study that was done by BMC, the Psychiatry Association in England, shows that the highest level of suicide and psychological disorders is within the homosexual community. Now, this could be fact checked. This is something that I believe is true, but if you don't believe me, you can probably see that a lot of people find this as a way to look for solutions in how to deal with life and its problems. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ. So humans will have those feelings of insecurity, of problems, but you don't really look for homosexuality as the solution. Now, I ask you, why is it that 20 years ago it was an issue of if somebody is gay or lesbian? Now, talking about israf, now we're talking about, I don't even know if I'm I'm a man or a woman, if I should change my gender and have a sex operation, and people are changing their sex completely, and now we're dealing with the issues that are becoming so confusing. And when people tell you, no, it's not confusing, you can live your life whichever way you want. Fine, you can live your life the way you want, but we cannot make this into a promotion that it is being made into now with this whole Pride Month. And people like us, are becoming sort of like, you're muzzled, and if you can't speak out, and if you do, you're homophobic, you're afraid. And no, we're not. In fact, listen, I'm Muslim and I'm Palestinian. I'm more of a minority than they are. So if anybody should care about civil liberties, it's people like me, and I do, and that's why I'm all for people living their lives the way they want. But it has to be in the context of, for me, Islam, and for somebody that might be not necessarily Muslim, Judaism or Christianity, they have the same positions, but at least we as Muslims, we have a very clear position, and that's in the Quran. But again, from a societal standpoint, we are dealing with an issue that could jeopardize our existence. And I say this, and I sound like I'm being paranoid, but if you have 21% now in this generation, then the new generation now, Generation Alpha, what's the percentage going to be when they're teaching this in schools? And why does a child in the 3rd grade need to question their sexual identity? I mean, why should they even, quite frankly, kindergarten, I didn't think that was really an issue that kids, thought about. We are poisoning the minds of our children, and as Muslims living in the U.S. and in countries that are non-Muslim countries, we have to speak out, but speak out in a civilized way, in a way that reflects what our position is in the Quran, in a way that respects civil liberties, and in a way that presents facts that show that the direction that our society is taking is, unfortunately devastating, could be devastating for the next generation and for our future. So that's why I felt that it's really important to make this video and to talk about issues that are relevant. We can't just talk about wudu and salah and hajj and ignore the very basic questions that our families and our children and ourselves are dealing with. And that's why it's really important to be equipped to pass this message to your child and to your family and to anybody that wants to discuss it in a civilized context. And I really believe that we are making a mistake to kind of bury our heads under the sand and hope, the brother at the masjid who told me this is not our problem. No, it is our problem, and that's why we need to talk about it, and we ask Allah an ينفعنا بما علمنا ويعلمنا ما ينفعنا. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.